Welcome to FMA Talk Live, the Martial Chronicles. I'm your host, Datu Tim, and we got someone else sitting in that chair today. What the heck's going on? So, PG Tye is out of town. Dean Franco was supposed to be sitting there right now, and he was late, and look what happened. Go figure. How are you doing, Master Rich?
I'm doing great, Datu Tim. How you been?
I am doing wonderful. And Mr. Wolf says, hello, Datu and Master Rich.
Hey, Sam. How you been?
All right. And then we have Mr. Hiltz from up north, Canada. And then we have greetings from Eric out in
Portland,
Oregon, who attended the Pontoon class this weekend. There we go. Let me see. And then this was from Roden. He made a thing. He brought a virtual cake. He put this up ahead of time and a knife to cut it. And I go, you guys look good too. Of course we do. So, so today, literally to the day, is my 35th anniversary of being a Remy Presas Modern Arnis black belt. And I wanted to. We weren't going to do a show today, but I decided to do a show today because PG Tye is out on the road. Can't make it. I'm looking at some stuff here because I am down light. PG Tye is actually flying home. So one of the Modernist road warriors. And does that? I don't know if my light's dead or is it the switch here? Oh, you know what? There's no power to this. Why is there no power to this? Oh, so we are going to look at some things here. There we go. That's way too bright. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. Happy anniversary from Mr. Eric. Then Matt Jones. Oh no, Tim is here. Now I can't talk about him. Yeah, there you go. All right. So, okay, now that I got that worked out, that's a lot better. Okay, just move that light right there. Okay, so yep, so today we're gonna just, I figured I wasn't gonna do a show. We were gonna just take the week off because Ty wasn't gonna be here, but I said, what the heck, let's do something. Next week, our show is going to be on the art within your art. We hear about that all the time in Modern Arnis. What does that actually mean? And, one of the things is, what about the people who didn't do it as the art within your art? What about the people who did it as a standalone program? Do you know any people who may have done that, Rich?
A few. Myself, you, a few other people.
There's two right here on the show. Here's another one, So we're going to talk about that. We have a few things, but ultimately, it's going to be fun. Well, I'll have a little rant, and the fun thing was, once again, Dean Franco is supposed to be like the guy taking over Ty's spot time and time again, and he didn't show up today. So now that spot goes to somebody else, maybe. And Dean, how are you doing?
Here I am backstage for 15 minutes.
We love you, Dean.
How you doing, Dean?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Doing fine on this wonderful Monday.
So obviously, Ty is not here. I was thinking Ty was going to be here.
We were talking about that again. So we'll recap. So Ty is flying home from Texas.
Gotcha.
So, and we weren't going to do a show. And then I looked at my calendar.
Yep.
And I'm like, it's my 35th anniversary. So let's do a show. Because listen, if Dean, who hosts FMA discussion periodically, once in a while when he's not here,
once in a while,
when he's not here. So, Dean will tell you.
Full-time job.
Yeah.
When you host a show, you have to stay fairly consistent.
Yeah.
We are definitely more like we're a live show. We're not a recorded show per se. I mean, there will be a recording, but I mean, like your show really, its strength is that people watch all the episodes afterwards.
Depending on the guest, like for instance, we had Terrell Richardson just last Sunday,
yesterday.
Yeah, and we had about, I think at some point it was in the teens, watching. Yeah, if you get in the teens, you're doing pretty good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and lately we've been in the high 20s, low 30s.
Yeah, if you get in the high 20s, yeah.
But we don't have those views, those huge views afterwards. Like your shows, you'll have anywhere from 1 to I mean, well, you've had like what's your biggest viewed show? You've broken 1,000, right?
Irish stick fighting, 3,000 views.
Yeah, there you go.
Doug Mercader's up there. Mark Wiley is.
I mean, I'm looking at your list right now, and you've got the hundreds of views, and obviously they weren't live. But our shows, we won't have anywhere near as the follow-up, but I think the big thing is we get in front of the people that we want to be in front of.
Yeah. But you also, I think also what I don't do is share it to numerous places when I go live. I could. I mean, like I'm starting to share it to FMA discussion and but you shared, like you got a few spots, no? Or
well, I have 2 YouTube channels, so which that complicates things.
Okay.
So like, okay, we did a thing. Why did it all fall apart last week? That was a Modern Arnis thing. Like, why did things crash in Modern Arnis afterwards? Which we're going to talk a little about today, only because it's my tirade, because the show is not a tirade. The show is about having celebration, and you guys are joining me, so thank you for joining.
Sure.
And then part of it's gonna be Q&A and all this other stuff, whatever, we'll go through all this. But okay, so last week or 2 weeks ago, we did a show on why did the aftermath of Modern Arnis after Remy died, how things went. So I think the highest point, I think we had like 30 people on that one. So on one channel, I have 92 views. The other channel, I have 164. So let's call it 250 views.
And what? I'm sorry, which one was that?
Why did Modern Arnis fall apart after Remy died?
Oh, I could see that being
So because I have 2 channels, it's split.
Gotcha.
Split. If I look at, let me see, what was a strong one for this one? I mean, Owning the Floor that we did together, that wasn't all that strong. That was
which one?
Owning the Floor, the seminar for Superior Seminars. That was 130 views between both channels.
What I find, if there's an aspect of controversy or drama, I hate to say it, people come out.
Now if we look at the review of our camp that we did between the 2 channels, I've got close to 300 views.
Now that was the camp.
The May camp we did for the World Modern Arnis Alliance,
Oh, okay.
So I mean that was we had close to 300 views between the 2 channels. Let me see here. Team Branco, what's next? FMA discussion, what's next? Let me look at that one. So let me see here. I've got 2 of them. I don't see. Oh, wait a minute. Am I on the right channel? Okay, here we go. So so I had 184 between the 2 channels. I would love to combine the channels. Unfortunately, one was under Tim Hartman, the other is under Datu Tim Hartman, and I lost my credentials at the time. Now I've regained them since, but I built up the Tim Hartman one, and I'm like, well, what do I do? Do I put it on? And there's no way to merge the 2 channels. That would have been awesome if I could. So I want to get to the point, if I can get to it where it monetized, not because I want to make money off of it, I want the views. I'd rather turn one channel into something different afterwards. So let's go here. Boom, 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 boom. So Matt says hello to all. Frank says, hey guys.
You guys.
Eric, Master Rich, Dean, pleasure to see both of you.
Oh, hey, Eric.
Did you pay that shit? Okay. 407 is worth of playback. So
He's mentioned that before.
because Renee keeps mentioning
355 and
405. All right, actually, Darren says hello from
where is Renee?
And okay, obligated rubber chicken salute from Homer, Alaska. Oh, Renee's going to be stalking us. He always does.
If he comes on, bring him on. He's just too.
Renee, if you're watching, we're gonna come on. Let's make this a party.
He's just too entertaining.
Yeah. So I want to talk about my rant.
So what is your rant this week?
So it's about last week's show. Or the last show we did is about why Modern Arnis fell apart, and someone decided to literally say myth busting. But the person, they said they're myth busting our show, because one of the things I said was, and Rich had watched the show and read posts and stuff, we stayed away from the personality driven things that why we all went in different directions. Okay. I went down the path of, let's talk about the tangible things, like the internet wasn't there. You couldn't. Okay, and hello, Mr. Terrell.
Oh, hey.
And Maria from Canada.
Maria.
Thank you. And then a great seminar, by the way. Oh yeah, we had a Pontoon rollout this past weekend, so we'll talk a little about that. So basically, what I sat there, because this conversation came up in one of my classes. I have a guy who does Parker's Kempo Karate, and he asked his teacher, why did it all fall apart? And the big part was we couldn't communicate. This was in the 90s. You'd have to dig on a phone, and who had a master list? And hold on. Come here. Let me see hey, Janice. Okay, Mama's not here. That's why. So my furry co-host, not you, Rich, the other furry one.
Hey,
how you? No, I'm talking about how you dress in the weekend. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your outfit. But yeah, he's a little needy at the moment. So we focused on the elements. Now, first of all, there was one dedicated school, full-time school out there. Rich was in a dedicated program. There was only 2 other dedicated schools that we know of in history. Everyone else taught us the art within your art. So that was, to me, that's a huge portion of this.
To me, that's still such a, I'd be interested. Well, I kind of know what you think. I'd be interested to hear what Rich thinks. Even though we covered that matter of fact, I've covered it, you covered it, and there's still this gray area. There's still this fog, of interpretation, or who was really who and who was really doing what. Were they sticking within the true lens of Modern Arnis, or was it in fact their material was more based on some of the seminars they went to and an integration into their program, and to me, that still is like this hovering.
It is
forever question mark. You know what I mean? And I covered it pretty extensively, I thought, as well as them.
You did, and unfortunately, you gave people an opportunity to discuss it with you, and they passed. Well, so here's okay. So let me talk about my rant. I don't care if you agree or disagree with it. I really don't. We can piece. Okay, hold on. I'll let you talk, Rich. I'm going to take care of the knucklehead here.
Yeah, Dean.
And the knucklehead are not you two guys. It's my 4-legged co-host.
Your 4-legged friend there.
Yeah, I get what you were saying, and I seen what you were talking about, where people, there is that gray area. Who was doing what? There were some attempts to put things in place, which Tim talked about, with some minor regional organizations that were trying to standardize things. A lot of that ran into the not invented here for who wrote it down, or a slight variation. Was there a comma or a semicolon separating the two terms? That became an issue, right? So there was not just personalities, but people thinking others were trying to take over when they were just trying to help Remy, right?
Yeah.
So
it always happens when when the head guy is gone, and then you get all those fractions and going on their own way, and it's obviously it doesn't help the art or the students, of course, because in conjunction with that whole gray area of like, was it your secondary tertiary program? Was it in fact, did you get like the whole program? That question mark. But in addition, like the whole aspect, well, what was the curriculum? Like, right. It was this written black belt test. Well, and that's a whole nother and I really made a concerted effort to really try to bring light to this, not so much for the present, but for the future students coming down, so they would have more understanding or semblance of like what the true curriculum was and all that. And it just was like all over.
Yeah, so the seniors, when I joined, had a written curriculum down for the schools in the area that were teaching it. And I've got a copy of one of the older versions that's in my fireproof safe in the basement.
Yeah, in the safe, in the basement, underground.
Yeah, it's fireproof, so, even if the house burns down, it'll still be there, right? But, yeah, and in the mid-'80s, late 80s, I started taking over writing those up and massaging them as we were adjusting what fit better for certain areas, then discussing it with Remy when we was in town. And the seniors were the ones that were doing a lot of the discussions, but until I got black belt as well, then I joined that group of the discussions. But it was a good piece, and the respect goes to those who started it. You know what I mean? Who did the initial attempts.
Yeah.
So
I just think the only way the cloud or the gray area is regarding like who's who and who got what, depending on this, that, the other thing, and in conjunction with the curriculum. Was it the black belt test, or was there actual the only way I think it's going to get some solidified or some context as far as not just historical, but some agreement on it is if folks come together. And I try that, and that's not, unfortunately, I don't think that's just going to happen, unfortunately. Yeah.
Oh, there. And which is why I applaud Datu, PG Ty, and Master Rich for trying to get all factions together to share. So here's what I'm going to say. Okay. We had this discussion. If someone doesn't want to agree with me, I'm okay with that. But I think it's cowardly. And if you're listening, you're a freaking coward because you block me and others so they cannot, and you talk smack and don't give people the opportunity, myself, to respond. And I see a bunch of the Modern Arnis people doing it right now. And they're, I'm going to take my ball and go home. I do not say anything, and there's people in the martial art community that I have blocked. I don't want their nonsense on my page because it's just venom. I don't talk about them. And here, I'm going to give you an example of how, since I'm the devil, let me tell you what happened in Austria, because I was teaching over there for a while. Alfred Plath used to be with Dieter Kanoodle in the DAV. They were partners all the time. They split. Alfred goes to be. You know what I didn't like about Modern Arnis? All the guys went over when Remy was in the hospital to become masters of Tappy Tappy. And I said, stop that. That's wrong. And I told the timeline. First of all, and I've been very clear, Amat to me is just a consolation prize for me becoming Datu because Remy only promoted them to 5th degree, not above me. And you can't say that it supersedes rank if they got a rank promotion. It makes no sense. And the problem is when we have all these discussions, people cannot separate emotion from logic. Okay?
Yeah, that's for sure.
Here we go. Let me ask you this, Dean. Okay, you're a 6th degree black belt in our art. Okay, Remy promoted me to 5th degree and Master Tappy Tappy, and now I supersede you.
No.
Does that make any sense to you?
No. I mean,
Why?
based on
Why doesn't that make sense to you?
Well, based on the belt structure period.
The belt structure period. So there was a whole bunch of people that were 3rds and 4th. 2 were already 5th. They were all brought up. Those who weren't 5th were brought up to 5th. And then they allegedly 5th degree black belt was a junior master, which makes no sense because senior master was 6th degree. Well, it wasn't 6th degree. It was one person, Dan Anderson, who was 6th and then got senior master, but no numerical rank promotion. Most likely it was because they didn't want to give him a raise, so you give him a title. So then they said 5th degree is no longer junior master. Well, if it was junior master, I would have been one because I was a 6th. Any rank-driven title I would have had. Like, Danny Terrell's here. Love you, Danny, by the way. Love you. Emotionally always overrides logic.
Subjectivity and emotional. And
if you talk about bikini tertia, every level has a title, right? So if I had, if junior master was a title based on a rank, I would have had it. What it would have been, anyways, logically, why would 6 be senior master, which it wasn't, it was just Dan, and why would 5th be junior master? Wouldn't it be master, and then 4th degree would have been junior master? Once again, logic. But they were talking to a guy who had sorry, 5th is still below.
Yeah, exactly. Argue that, Eric.
Exactly, Eric. I was thinking maybe the new math had something to do with this.
Yeah.
So,
you know what the problem is? Just based on what you're telling me is going. Okay, so they have a belt structure that he's using, which is obviously fine. But now you're putting the master stuff in there. So now there's already going to be like, okay, who falls where and who trumps who, and
and that's the game they tried to say that the title superseded things, but if the title superseded rank, then they wouldn't have been promoted in numerical rank. Only to 5, which was below me, and why? But that's a whole other story. So what had happened is 2 people in Tunisia were promoted. Remy was having signs of a problem there physically, where he was wearing clothes inside out, upside down, and backwards. He had some equilibrium problems. I do believe that he was going to promote the title, these people, to Master of Tappy Tappy, but it's never been publicly verified what that actually is. And a guy we knew back in the day said, well, I'll tell you where the title came from. Well, what was that? Well, Remy was at a seminar, I turned and go, Michael, they're beginning to master Tappy Tappy. So it was probably just a thing, whatever.
Yeah, a phrase came out, and that phrase all of a sudden became like a staple for.
But if Remy kept them at 5th degree, why? Well, I mean, listen, I was just promoted to 6th and Datu. If it was to supersede me, they would have been bare minimum the equal rank, if not higher, because numerical rank has always been constant in the art. And title hasn't superseded rank in any art that I know of. Thank you.
And that's something I was just going to bring out. Eric just made, I thought, an excellent point there. It's like when I look at other FMA systems, okay, they use a belt system. When you get the 10th, obviously wherever they designate where you become a master.
Whatever, yeah.
6th degree, okay, when you're master, 10th degree, grand. Okay, in KI, okay, your guru, senior guru, whatever. But there's no overlaying of different like that. And when I look at Modern Arnis, when I look at Modern Arnis, and I know you guys
here's the problem. Remy died, and people make up shit. So
but was the stuff being made up while he was still alive with all this ranking stuff?
All this thing about Master Tappy Tappy, in my personal opinion, and I threw it out there, personal opinion, was all subterfuge because the person who was the chairman of the board, financial advisor, medical advisor, executor of the will.
That's way too much for one person.
Wait, did we talk about how Remy's estate disappeared 2 days before he died? Did we talk about the same person also years later was arrested for embezzling money because he had a bad gambling problem?
Oh, boy.
And the will was never executed because it would have had a list of people that Remy wanted to take over as a group, as a collective. And the Mots were part of that group, but they were not the only ones in the group, and they'd only be a minority in that. So you can say whatever you want, but we know what the optics are.
Here's the thing, though. Okay. with regards to the will, before it disappeared, did anybody physically see it?
No, the will never disappeared. The estate disappeared.
All right. So regarding to that, where it identified people who were going to take over what?
Yeah.
That's still visible to this day?
Well, obviously, Dan put it in his book.
Oh, so okay. All right. And so he actually kind of designated names who were doing.
Yeah. And it was completely ignored. Matter of fact, ranks and titles, politics. Matter of fact, so there was 3 attorneys: David Pajak, which was a classmate and student of mine; Brett Salafia, who was a classmate but a senior classmate to Brian Zwolinski, and is an assistant DA. Last time I checked, he was Remy's second attorney, and then the third attorney was Kevin Black, which is one of my students, who eventually went into the FBI. So obviously there's, he's
incognito.
Well, yeah, yeah. So holy moly, what did I walk in? Hello, thank you. Okay, thank you. So this is just my rant, and then we're going to get into the 30.
Yeah, but I want to get back on the will, because this is a piece that I never really went fully into my shows. And so there is mention of the Dan's book.
So I'll make it real simple. Hold on, I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay, this will be interesting.
So while he's doing that, can I talk to a point that Dean brought up before about the gray area? So in the gray area, Dean, how many times have you been at a seminar and then months later or years later, you've talked to 2 different people? They heard the exact same words. They saw the exact same techniques, but they repeat back to you something different than what you said, not only in technique, but in the words, and say, no, you said this.
Yeah.
They believe it because that's what they took home as what they understood from you. So if there's that gray area with people at the same event listening to the same thing
in a singular context, now blow that up.
Yes.
There we go. Let me just we'll just do this. Actually, Paulo actually.
Now it's like
right.
So,
you ready?
It's a monster now. You can't even get control of it.
Here we go.
All right.
So, board members will consist of the following individuals: Brian Zwolinski, Chuck Goss, Bruce Chu, Jeff Delaney, Dan Anderson, Terry Warren, Doug Pierre, Dr. Randy Shea, Al Garza, Timothy Hartman, David Hoffman, Larry Roca, Brett Salafia, Ken Smith, Jim Lattis, Richard Roy, Fred King. That's got to be Shashir Anacalo, Lee Lowry, Dave Converse, Andy Filardo, Michael Bates, David Nung, Roland Rivera, Roland Dantes, Marlena Hafano, Kevin Black, Charles Terry, Dieter Canoodle, Gabrielle Roloff. Boom.
Can you scroll up a bit? Back to the wow. So this is actually, well, for me it's very interesting because as far as so these were obviously who he designated and wanted. So
now let me rephrase. Let me say something. I cannot unsay things. There's people up here that were gone for years that probably were put in early versions of the will. So this will has been evolved for over 15.
Oh, so you're saying they might not have been necessarily active?
Well, I'll tell you. Okay, let's go through. Let me tell you who's okay. So Terry Warren, I love Terry. He was a camp host. That's all he did. He hosted the best camp.
Michigan?
Best. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
See.
Okay, Larry Roca.
I've heard that name. Okay.
He very talented martial artist. He's doing things more in youth hockey than anything else.
All right.
David Hoffman's no longer with us. Brett Salafia was one of the previous. And here's the one thing. So your attorney really shouldn't be in your own will. So Kevin Black is named in here. He was the attorney that did this last will. Brett Salafia was in the will. He did one of the earlier versions of the will. But the only Filipinos, when I say Filipinos, I'm talking residents in the Philippines. There's only one, and that's Roland Dantes.
Yeah,
Shashir, I'm not sure what his residential. He's got He goes to the Philippines, he goes to Vancouver, and he goes to Florida. So I don't know where.
I thought. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought when we interviewed him, it was Canada, but
yeah, he's living in Canada primarily at the moment.
So Doug Pierre, though, I mean, was he active?
Oh yeah, no, Doug would show up to events. He was he was. Okay. But so here's the ones. Let me see here. Let's see.
Lee Lowry hosted him, right?
So Bruce
Chu's there.
Bruce took himself out because there was a problem. It was dealt with, but he kind of felt embarrassed and took himself out.
Oh, he shouldn't have done that. But
I know.
Listen, that's too bad.
Something went sideways, and his alleged Modern Arnis friends dropped him like a bad habit. That pissed me off.
Yeah, that pissed me off.
Bruce and I have never been close, but I've always liked Bruce.
No, I mean, well, you know how I feel about Bruce. Too.
I know. You know, and you can talk to him more about this, but you should ask him. I go,
I will when I see him next time. Yeah.
There were people that dropped him like a bad habit that they would be very buds with, and I'm like, dude, that's not right. If there's a problem, he's still your friend.
Yeah, you know what I mean. You just
so Larry probably wouldn't have done anything. Where is it? Fred King had been gone for years.
Okay.
So he was actually the one that introduced Dan Anderson to Remy. So that was, in the 70s we're talking.
So he was obviously West Coast then, right?
Yeah, Lowry had retired.
So Lee Lowry retired like what?
Mid 90s.
Huh?
Mid 90s.
He sold the school, the whole deal, mid 90s?
I don't know if he sold it or just shut it down. I know, they.
It had to be. When I went to that seminar when I was working for the state, we were at his facility, and it was yeah, you know what though? Actually, it was around mid 90s.
Yeah, because he wasn't hosting Remy in those days, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, because when you look in the mid 90s, you're going to see more.
Remy was there. Remy walked in, so he had Remy there.
Troublemaker.
What's that?
Yeah, Shashir Nakalo.
Yeah,
that's probably Cesar Ancala, because people probably didn't know how to spell his name, or is that somebody, or it could be somebody else. I don't know. I'm always assuming that's Shashir. Maybe that's not Shashir.
Cesar Ancala.
Because if you look at Shashir, the way if you look at, I don't want to see here.
It could be somebody else.
Could be somebody else. Okay, so Dave Converse, Michael Bates,
So Michael Bates is still active, correct? Or no?
Yeah, I mean, he hosts that Hall of Fame thing.
Okay, so all right, so what you're, I guess, in short, half the list is either wasn't active at the time. Or...
No, not half the list. I mean, okay, like I said, Bruce kind of stepped back. There's one. Terry Warm. He was. See, here's the thing. Remy wanted to include everybody. No one was going to see the will
on this list right here. I mean, that's a lot as far as who you want to do what.
Yeah, but you also notice there's people who are not on the list.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a question for you. Not taking anybody out of this list, who would you made inclusive?
I think
the question, Dean, I didn't hear.
So not necessarily removing anybody from this list, but who would have you guys had in here?
I would have taken people off the list.
I know, but we can't. I know.
No, I wouldn't have put.
Let's go from the reference point. Who would you had in here? Not so much switching, removing.
So I like the idea of Terry being in there because his input would have been from the aspect of organization, running a camp. It would have been good for continuity. It would have given him the prime location for continuity. And therefore, his input would still be respected and treated well.
I'm sorry, that was again who? I'm sorry,
Terry Warham.
Okay.
The camp host.
So that's right up here. Which I can't highlight at the moment. Okay, so Terry Warham. Well, listen, I don't think. Okay, of those who were active at the time, I don't think there's any more names
that you would like to have seen in here? Okay.
No, I don't think. I think there's too many names already.
Yeah, I mean, for face value, it appears that way. I was just curious if you guys had folks around that time that were incredibly active.
Any other names that were usually hermits or had tired of the politics and already removed themselves from that environment.
Well, here's the thing. There's a bunch of people that I would say, but they were underneath me. So now I try to be as neutral as possible. Like we do some things where we have a tournament league and we're locally. And when we have these meetings and votes, the first thing I made sure was set up was that each school has one voice.
Yeah.
So you can bring as many people to the meeting as possible.
Right. The school gets one vote.
But you're not going to overrun everybody because
no, just because you might bring in like 100.
So, I mean, the thing here is, okay, listen, here's the thing. This is supposed to be a board to run things. I don't think most of these people should be on the board to run things because they didn't know the art enough. I think in different levels, if we had different types of positions, I think all those names would be great for the list.
All right, tell me this. So, all right, there's a question to both of you. Okay, so obviously there's.
I'm going to shut this off too, by the way.
Okay, so obviously there's physical proof that this will existed. It's in GM Dan's book and all that. Why wasn't it executed to the written language? Why wasn't it executed? Period. Why?
Okay. Well, first of all, you're so fuzzy right now.
I'm fuzzy?
Yeah.
Why am I fuzzy?
Yeah, I see you as fuzzy.
Did you touch your screen at all by any chance?
No. Okay. I can.
Looks like your camera is just out of focus.
Yeah, it is fuzzy. What's going on? Should I try coming back in, maybe?
He's fading away.
Oh no! Somebody snapped their fingers. Dean.
Oh, Thanos is around. Who? I bet you it was that Ty guy.
Ty. Should I try coming back in or no?
Okay, sure. Why not?
All right, boot me and bring me back in.
Well, no, you got to. Okay. Let me do this. I think you should log out and log back in.
All right, let me do that.
Down at the bottom, there should be a leave studio.
Yeah. Okay, let me try that. All right. I'll see you guys.
Dean is fading.
Yes. All right.
I'll see you guys. Okay. All right, now let's talk about Dean. No. I set up a program to make it all go fuzzy.
Where does he get off asking questions?
Yeah, well, no, actually, and I want him to come back when I talk about it because I do want to. I don't want to talk about what because of and learning 09 learning. I'm going to be addressing that, but I want Dean here as well because if we're going to be on the show and someone's going to accuse someone of something, I want to make sure that everyone hears what I say. Okay, let me bring him back in. Oh, that looks better so far.
All right.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what.
All right. So let's do a couple things here. First of all, let's do this. 09 Learning asked, I'm glad you are discussing this. Are you the highest ranking American promoted by GM? Okay. So here's what I'm going to say. There were 3 people that I know of that were promoted to 6th degree. I was the last one. Sifu Lowry was one of them. He retired. So to me, his rank is no. I don't want to say it's not valid. He attained that, but it's like being the champ. You know, if you're the champ and you retire, Ali was always referred to as the champ, but that will not be. What I will say is that I know for a fact, because Remy made a big speech about this, I was the highest tested black belt in over 17 years. So on my anniversary, so 35 years ago, I took the physical test. I became a 6th degree, which is actually 7 because it's black, then first. And Remy said it was over 17 years. So that brings me back over 17, which brings me back to 1983 at least. So it was the highest tested black belt. Okay. So the other one was Dan Anderson. Dan Anderson had retired, had stopped training. And, Remy told him at the end because he was close. Dan was close enough to go visit him where his hospice was. And he told Dan to get back involved. Now, Dan has amended his comment saying, I don't know what you're talking about. I was involved, but he wasn't around. And then he said, well, I took time off to raise my child, which is another story. And then he told me that he had a falling out with Remy, and, so be it. So for this question, I was the highest tested black belt in Modern Arnis that we know of in the States. That we know of. At least from 83 up until the time that Remy, the last test was in 2000. That's the last series of tests.
All right. While I was having those technical issues with, as far as my coming in.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the will.
That's what I mean. Like, why wasn't it for both of you? Why was it? Obviously, there's proof of it. It was put in Dan's book. Why wasn't it implemented to its fullest?
Well, because you didn't. Okay, you missed the part that I said the person who. Okay, so, and I'm basing on the facts that I've been told. So everybody, you can do your own research. There was the chairman of the board.
Okay.
Who ended up embezzling millions of dollars, from what we've been told, from different people, including his brothers and sisters as masters of Tappy Tappy.
Wow.
And probably embezzled Remy's estate because it disappeared 2 days before he died.
It's terrible.
And so when you've got a person who controls all those things, and he wanted to run the organization his way, if you would have executed this will, how would that have gone? And more importantly, if it's true that he did steal all that stuff, which it's kind of hard for me not to believe happened.
Yeah.
By making sure the will isn't executed, you have that trail is now covered up.
That's a good point. As far as legality, right? You're not going to be held criminally.
So they had all these things. I remember, the will got brought up by one of Brian's guys, and I reached out to Brian. I go, hey Brian, you might want to. This was years ago. I go, you might want this when FMA Talk was going. I go, you might want to keep that quiet, let your guy quiet on a leash, like my guy here. And he goes, well, it's nobody's business. I go, well, it is if you're in it, like I am. And people don't like that. And the funny thing is, when they had the IMAF meetings, Brett, the second attorney, would bring up the will in meetings, and they would tell him to be quiet and stop being a troublemaker. Now,
for bringing it up.
Yeah, because once again, think about this. You had 7 people, in my opinion, execute a coup.
Then they had a schism.
Yeah, so they executed. I mean, in my opinion, they executed a coup and then they split the separation. But I mean, if this will would have went in and all these people were part of it, they would have been the minority in that group if everyone decided to be part of it.
And then everybody involved would have had an equal vote, right? And if they elected a chairman, that's one thing, or whatever the title they chose. But for day-to-day execution, but the board is the board, and they can replace that chairman, right? By having another vote of confidence. So, but if you don't execute that will, then the estate doesn't get executed. Then the martial arts organization.
Absolutely, that's not going to get right. Yeah.
So think about this. Remy will, and this is the thing I'm going to point out, because there's a big misunderstanding of things. The organization was a U.S.-based group. Okay. None of the Filipinos were included except for Roland Dantes.
Right.
Now there's Filipino Americans on here.
Yeah.
But it was all based. The people who were supposed to be in charge
were based here. Yeah.
Were based here. So the IMAF Philippines was a Philippines chapter of the main organization. And they only started in 1999.
Here's my next question for both of you regarding the will. Do you think things would be dramatically different, whether negatively or positively, if that will was in fact put in place?
Rich, you go first.
I still think eventually there would have been some splitting, given some of the personalities. But I do think there wouldn't have been a quiet wall from those who were, quote, in charge. And some of them believe it because that's what they were told, right? But that's not what was in writing for the executable. And so I don't have all the pieces. Okay, got it. But to me, I think it would have been a little bit better. You could have coordinated, you could have supported a unified organization, and then had like a coalition of those members still working and teaching. And then obviously if there were any rank promotions, the board would have to agree to it, right? But
yeah, that's what I mean. It seems like if I had to guess, I would be guessing what you just mentioned, but it seemed like it would have given some governing aspect so people go off the radar or go amok. I mean, at least there's some accountability where now, like, granted, like to your point, people, there probably would have been some splitting inevitably, right? Some people would have just left or what have you. But overall, it seems to me that it would have gave some collective aspect to how you guys are doing things and that. Or Tim's laughing.
Okay, so
Renee.
Okay, Renee's on there, so we'll talk about Renee in a minute here.
Oh my God, we gotta get him. We gotta get him on.
Let's take care of this first. We're in the rant.
Yeah, we'll take care of this first.
we got to finish the rant. So Jim and Judy Clapp had been gone for years, and that's why they weren't in the But then again, Fred King was around in the 70s and stuff like that. Okay, so I don't know what rank Dean Stockwell was. Not sure. Now, here's the thing. If the will was executed, we would not have the Masters of Tappy Tappy above and beyond everything else.
So there would have been. So you're saying there would have been some improvement, right?
I think there would have been. Okay, listen, we would have split. There's no question that people would have gone in different directions. Yeah. Remy was the magnet and the glue that held us together. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with people go because listen, it's like a head of a family. Or you have someone you go visit centrally and that person is no longer there, whether they move or pass on. Well, now you don't go there anymore. Maybe, like where I'm located, a lot of guys come from all over the place. Now, Craig just went down to camp with ties, and those guys, that was 12 hours for him each way, so he might not make that, but coming to Buffalo, it's only a 6-hour drive, so that's an easier hit. Hold on one second here.
Renee, check your message. Renee, check your Facebook Messenger if you're still watching.
Okay, what's this? Can anyone name the organization in FMA or any other martial arts that wasn't split after Big Dog passes? Yeah, so Craig Mason is crazy, yes.
Driving 12 hours?
Well, he would do 12 hours in a day. He'd come down in the morning, train with me, go home.
Yeah, not this guy.
9 hours because I'd go to Detroit to see.
Wow. Uh-oh. So, Rich, it sounds like, like there would have been some improvement on status quo today. Granted, that would have not ceased, or some of the splitting and people leaving, doing their own thing. I mean, that's inevitable, of course,
Well, here's what I would say. You had some people. Yeah. Okay, so this goes down to so my rant was we weren't supposed to talk about this, but the rant was about why things.
I've never seen that will, so it was interesting for me to see it. So.
Yeah, so here's the thing. People didn't agree with the show, and they're trying to myth bust things. Okay, Ty and I decided to focus on the less negative aspects of things. So without the internet communication that we have today, let's think about it. If Remy would have passed away 2 years ago, so where would we be today? And and listen, and here's the thing: people could pick up their phone, which is more powerful than a computer was when he passed away in 2001. You could do a Google search from your phone, or any kind of search from your phone, to find other Modern Arnis schools in your area or where the next one is. Right now, I mean, think about that. People weren't using computers back then the way they are today. Smartphones didn't happen until like 2005 or phones with the internet.
The internet, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we did this back when Chris was shocked. Chris Chu was shocked that the East Coast director didn't know who his father was. And I'm like, well, why would he know who your father was?
I
mean, the thing is, we were all nobodies. Okay.
Yeah, pre-internet, right?
But when you look at say, well, how does he not know this? Well, let me see here. In 2001, cell phones started to have internet. Facebook was 2004. That was just a college thing. YouTube was created in 2005. Instagram 2010. Okay, if we had this shit while Remy was around, it'd be so much easier for us to network and find people that we could work with. So let's say, hey, I don't like the powers that be. Fine. But I can find somebody else I can train with.
Sure.
Back in the day, back then, we all picked up a magazine to see where Remy was.
No, I know. And you probably saw Black Panther tapes. And
then he died.
Yeah.
So then there's no more seminars.
Right.
So, I don't really, so we, instead of us focusing on the stuff with the will, focus on the egocentric nonsense that people were we got to kiss the ring and all this. Brian made a big comment about, the IMF wanted people to kiss the ring. Well, you were part of that at that time, Brian. You were part of that for 15 years. Yeah. And if you're either part of the problem or the solution. So taking no action is an action by itself. If you allowed that to happen, you're an accomplice in all that stuff.
100%.
So these are the things now. And like I said, I don't care if people agree or disagree. We decided to go, like I said, a better route on this. But don't make comments and block me so I can't respond, because I don't do that to anybody.
Yeah, I'm sorry to bring it. I was just curious. Like, I've always heard about this will. It was just kind of nice to.
Well, now you've seen it. Well, now you don't have to buy Dan's book to see it.
Oh, Renee is waiting for Link whenever you're ready. He's ready whenever you're ready.
Oh, you bastard. I knew you were going to do that. So,
but no, I thank you guys. It was it was interesting for me because covering Modern Arnis in the series and just having a multitude of guests on that were talking about it. I've always heard about the will, but never saw it or the names involved. So this gave some clarity definitely tonight, just seeing it.
Yeah. And if you look, that will it was a copy of the will. It was mailed up in 2003. So there's an official stamp. So that's the way it was. So, okay. So, so I mean, like I said, that was the only thing. Of course, that became a big thing. I just listen. If the will would have been executed, and think about some people that in Modern Arnis whose names aren't in the will. The problem, we ran into things and people trying to say, "Well, I should have been the guy," and go,
"That's why I was bringing up
the goddamn will."
If there were folks that you guys thought that maybe should have been there that were omitted,
Nope. No, because it was too. Okay, here's the thing: 27 names. That's way too much.
No, that's what I mean. When I first saw that whole list, I'm thinking like it was gonna be a list of like 10 or 6. I don't know, you know what I mean?
But Remy didn't want to exclude anybody. He didn't want anyone to feel left out. Yeah. Oh, you bastard! You suck, Renee.
What do you say?
Not Tim. That's what he did.
I thought he had a numerical like 355 or 404 or something.
Oh, that'll be next. Come see this episode.
Who is 355? Who's that over there?
But now, you started a trend, Renee, because now, what's his name? Where is it? Kurt. Kurt's talking about episode 407. That's a highway up in Canada. Then all of a sudden it dawned on me, wait a minute, no, it's probably his episode.
That's a very expensive highway in Canada.
Yeah, oh my God, and I got a transponder to take that, and oh my God.
Sorry, we're at crazy o'clock in my house, so there might be some running up children in a second.
Oh, I've been dealing with my furry four-legged children here too, so
barking, growling.
I can't wait till I get the studio built in the basement. That'll be awesome. There we go.
What? Come here.
Uh-oh. Hey, does this kid have a waiver to be online?
Come here, Maniac.
Has a consent form?
Come here. I know you're super thirsty. Here, come say hello.
Hey.
Hi. How you doing?
Good thing. How you doing?
Is that the kid that got the sticks I sent you?
No, that's this one. Hey, River, come say hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Remember you got some little pair of sticks a long time ago? Yeah.
Yeah, that was for me.
That's the gentleman right there that got him for you.
The guy with the big hair.
Yeah, he has crazy hair days. That's at his school.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was yesterday. All right, that's good. You guys run along. Run along, children.
Now you're like, well, we call him over.
Run along.
What was I thinking?
So what's good, guys? What's going on?
Oh, we're just celebrating my 35th year as the black belt.
35 years?
Yeah, today. Literally, today is my 35th anniversary.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That is.
Ty's not here, so we can't celebrate proper but it's okay.
Sorry, I have to make sure they get water, otherwise it's part of the sleeping process. Here, cup of water. Run away. Run away. Take those off. No, okay, guys. Bye. Upstairs. See you later. Thank you. Good night. Love you. Sleep well. Dream about fighting. Yeah.
Wife is in the Dog Brothers home. There you go.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's a video of River playing around with me, and she's hitting me with a stick, and I stopped, and I was lying on the ground for 2 seconds, and I turn around, and she just clocked me square across the face.
Oh, nice.
I was very proud of her.
There we go.
True love.
There's your kid. There you go.
35 years, man. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I still can't believe I'm still doing it.
Hey, man, it's not easy sometimes, right? Especially, and politics and garbage like that can make it very difficult.
About that.
I was actually just chatting with somebody today, actually over in Europe, and we were just talking about politics and whatnot. And it's funny how, when I was in Europe, I met a bunch of guys, and they're like, "Hey, you're not as bad as we heard you are." It's like, oh God, what the hell have you heard about me?
Yep. I am still sparring. Yep. Yeah, well, yeah. Well, we know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Someone sees something, assumes something, doesn't do the research, and
Well, it's like what you said. Sometimes people don't have the balls to say it to your face, but they have the balls to say it to everybody around them.
Well, and that's one of the things that I'm complaining about today, because it's like, I have no problem people disagreeing with me. No one has to like what I say. No one has to like me. But if you're gonna talk smack about me, don't block me so I can't defend myself. Yeah. That's cowardly. And there's a couple of people in Modern Arnis that do that, and they're all, this is false information, and we're gonna fix that. How are you gonna fix that? You weren't even around. Most of these guys that they're talking about stuff, they're like, you were not around. How the hell are you gonna do any of this stuff? Stop.
Yeah. Well, that's why I appreciate Dean, because he'll say it to my face.
Well, as you should.
When I eventually see Renee, aka Growling Dog, I will definitely be saying to his face.
He's one of the only people that say, you know what, Renee, 355 was not as good as 404.
Ooh.
404 was your second
episode? I gotta be honest. I cannot get through the whole episode of 355 without shedding a tear. I can't.
Is that what it is?
I'm telling you, I cannot get through the whole episode without shedding a tear.
We should have made this into a mini series, because it is a lot of information.
Yeah, and just the comments and just it's overwhelming. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
Yeah, someone actually asked Guru Dan, what'd you think about 355 and Renee, and he said, who? It was just so overwhelming for him.
he didn't have words for it, right?
No, he actually got Joel to send me a message saying, hey, he just doesn't like talking about that kind of stuff in public.
There we go.
he couldn't even do it himself. He had to have Joel do it.
No, again, it has to do with politics, right? He doesn't want to get involved.
Oh God. Who invited this guy, Dean? Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm sorry. I just can't. He's just too funny. I thought he'd be a nice addition to your celebration.
It could get more crazier because you know who else could be here?
Who's that?
Paulo Rubio.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
That would
okay.
be like,
Here we go. Chris Chu. Good evening, gentlemen. Hey,
Good evening, Chris.
Hey, Chris. Say hi to Dad.
Yeah.
Love that guy, Bruce.
And then I think it was pretty clear when the old man died. Tim was
okay.
his right-hand guy. Others had more time and were a bit
active at that time.
Tim was the most active I know of it, and was out of the look. Yeah.
So here's a question for you, Datu.
Mm-hmm.
With this, what Rocky just mentioned, was that generally perceived by the rest of the hierarchy of Modern Arnis? Was it, or they just didn't want to admit it? But was that a general?
That would be the latter.
What's that?
It'd be the latter.
That it was known, they just didn't want to admit it or give credence.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen. So if there were 7 people that mastered tappy thing, most of them hadn't produced black belts. I produced 31 black belts, and some of which were the same ranks as these guys were before the tumor promotion.
Okay.
If we're talking about my people, okay, I had students that could have easily been in the same group as the Mots, but they were in my school. So Remy wouldn't do anything to undermine my school. But if my guys had relocated to somewhere else, they'd all be masters and stuff of that nature. They would easily be, because if I wasn't teaching at camp, they were teaching at camp. But the thing here is, and here's the thing, you know what? Okay, we talk about logic. Here's the hard thing that people would, it's hard to swallow. I was the only okay, no, I'm going to rephrase that. There was a small handful of people that were dedicated to doing Modern Arnis as a primary system. And these guys weren't it.
Oh, because they were doing as a supplement. Okay.
Karate, Taekwondo, fill in the blank.
Gotcha,
let me see here. I'm just trying to, but the thing, I mean, personally, I don't think most of the people would have been, well, okay. So next week, we're going to talk about what the art within your art is. Okay.
Oh, so you're covering that. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. And how that actually applies to things. But because remember, that was a phrase that Remy used to promote the art. Actually, the magazines used to promote it over here. I don't know if Remy came up with that motto, but in the Philippines, it was Modern Arnis. It wasn't the art within your art. It was a standalone program. He was in the school systems. He was with the military. He was with law enforcement. He was the machine that helped save Filipino martial arts in the Philippines. Documented, not fictional stuff. Another thing that a lot of people don't like admitting to in the FMA community. Well, Remy was okay, but Remy saved shit. Stop that, Rich.
Yeah, Remy was recognized. Remy had it in the schools from the elementary system on off. Marcos even wanted to take it over and use it as a youth organization for him, similar to what others had done in Europe, and to use that to create a foundation for obedience and following. Remy didn't want that, so he resisted. He ended up leaving the country. But so when the dictator president of the country wants to take over your organization,
you must be doing something right?
Yeah.
Well, doesn't that kind of happen with like evolution and growth too? I find, like, even for example with us, with the Todd brothers, when Arlen and Eric went on hiatus, if it wasn't for Mark Denny, it would have sunk, right? It would have ended. And then as things start growing and we start going global, dare I say, he wasn't given that credit anymore. It was more like, they just took it for granted.
Yeah. So personally, okay. So Modern Arnis is a standalone program, but what Remy's genius was also his downfall. Instead of trying to compete with other schools, he taught schools how they could adapt this to what they're doing. And if you think about the art within your art, really just another way of saying cross training. Look at the BJJ guys. They added ground game to people that were all strikers. If they wanted to go all in, they could. But some people just went and put a little ground element. They still taught their karate, their taekwondo, the whatever.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So it was just more of an enrichment program. And unfortunately, most of the people who did Modern Arnis it's a secondary tertiary system. So based on that, I don't think most of Remy's students were qualified to take it to the next level because they didn't do it. And here we go. Well, Jeff didn't write it. It was part of the article, but it was a different one. I was mentioned as Modern Arnis Next Generation, in black.
Way back in 1998?
Yeah.
So obviously you must have been extremely present and active for that to even be mentioned. Okay.
Okay, so the only way your name got known is if you were hosting events and your name ended up as the host in the thing, or you traveled a lot.
Right.
No one traveled as much as I. I mean, we figured that I went to 180 Remy events.
Even back then, you were like really traveling a lot? Yeah.
I started from 1986 on. I was traveling to 12 events.
So by 98, you were okay.
So by then, I mean, it was, so a lot of people had heard of me. So, but I mean, but that's because I got on the road. I went to 30 camps.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, that's, and the camps weren't the same camp over and over again. I mean, I always went to Michigan, but my first camp was 1986. It was Mississippi summer camp. I'd gone to three different camps in Texas, Massachusetts, Atlanta, or actually Tucker, Georgia, Joliet, Illinois,
Yes.
Joliet, yeah. All over the place, like I said. But the thing here is that a lot of people didn't do. I mean, I went to seek Remy out because I left my school before it closed, basically, and then Remy, then Remy just reached out to me and said, "If you want to continue, I'll teach you." And Rocky could tell you. I mean, Rocky, I would bring people to Buffalo. Rocky was one of those guys that had teach in my school. But then I was going to the Michigan summer camp. I was going to all these seminars. How many times do you think Remy was in the Metro Detroit area, Rich, in a year?
Between Lansing, Detroit Metro, which includes Ann Arbor, and then up in Flint, probably 4 to 5 times a year.
I would probably be at 3 of those. So I'd go to the Michigan summer camp, which was always in July, which is where I got my black belt promotion. But Jay Spiro used to host them. I've gone to Chuck Goss has hosted Remy. I would, he would also be in Sarnia, which was across the river. So, I mean, I was, I would go to Canada a lot. When Remy was going to Canada for a while, I was going there, That's why I was known. Most of Remy's guys weren't known because they didn't travel. Not the same way. Now, they would go to the camps, and if people went to the camps, but there was 2 different cultures in Modern Arnis. There was your seminar students, and then there was your camp people, and they weren't always the same people.
Okay.
I mean, like, we would go, like, Chuck would go to a lot of the camps, but we wouldn't see him at a lot of the seminars in his own town. So, did Chuck ever go to Jay Spiro's event?
I don't know of that.
I know he didn't go to Flint.
No, he was there once. I'll say that he was there once.
Yeah. So when it came to people being known, I mean, I was a seminar junkie, and I made sure I did my yearly camp, and sometimes I did 2 or 3 camps in a year.
And he was, and I'll qualify it. It was probably early on in his training, so it was around 93-ish.
But I mean, if you didn't go outside your region, Brian Zolinsky, he mostly stayed in Connecticut.
So Lee was bringing him. So was Lee Lowry bringing him pretty frequently, or?
Oh, Lee. I'm not sure how often this is the whole thing. Rocky made a comment, which is a good one, and he made a comment saying, "How much time did you spend with the old man?" And people answered, and some people did cryptic things. Well, every time I was on the road, I was with this person and that person, and all right. But no one. Well, only a couple of people actually gave tangible answers of how many hours and time. I mean, Dieter was saying he did 50 hours with Remy, so that's like 2-3 camps at most.
That's
maybe
pretty wild because I have like I still have my hours down for like Mameko and all that, just for my own personal reference, if anything else. So you think, well, I guess not everybody does that. I guess I don't know. Maybe it's just not important to them.
Once again, Modern Arnis people generally don't do it as a standalone program, which is once again why I made the comment of why I think a lot of people, and actually the people on the list. Okay, so here's the thing. We'll talk next week. We'll talk about the art within your art. But who represents what Remy taught? Because here's the thing, and Rich had been to a Rich, Ty, actually, Rich and Ty, Chad Doolin. There's a handful of us that have been in for a long time and went to a whole bunch of places. The combination of the two. Remy didn't teach. I never found that Remy taught. Okay. If you were in a room full of karate guys, he might relate it to you. But usually the room was a mixed group of people. I didn't find, and I did the art as a standalone program. I don't think he ever taught it different to the room, as in like, okay, I'm teaching it as the art within your art. He just taught the art.
Yeah.
So personally, I don't think there's enough people. I think there's very few people out there that would be qualified to teach what Remy taught. They could teach the synthesis that he created in people. But if the art within your art is a mixed drink, and Remy was rum, and how many drinks can you make with rum? Renee probably knows. He's an alcoholic. No, he's thinking.
Rum and pineapple.
Like we're in Barbados, there's a rum punch or all these other things. What happens when you run out of rum?
You punch the person.
Exactly. Maybe twice. But the thing here is when you go through this, Remy was that rum that mixed with everything. All the other martial arts were the mixers. But what was that bait? We put rum with whatever. So someone needs to represent what Remy taught. And that's the thing that I'm always focusing on. I don't want to say, because people have tried to hammer me on this. As I try to teach the art as pure as possible. I wish Ty was here because this is how Ty and I got connected. Eric Alexander was in Connecticut, same town as Frank. He was Frank Schakowsky's teacher. And they had me out for a seminar. I'm like, why did you, in 91, I'm like, why did you have me out? You got Richard Roy, you've got the claps, you got all this other stuff. And they're like, dude, I need the art as pure as possible. Richard Roy is as talented as he is, puts as much Tai Chi in the system as possible. I want it to be my choice. I don't want it to be blended. So when I teach my modern, I teach my modern. When I teach my Blintwalk, I teach my Blintwalk. When I teach my Sikran, I teach my Sikran. But I also tell people that if you want to watch me in certain arts like my Kuntao or Sikran, my classmates are probably a better expression of it because when I do me, I got all that blend in me. Can I teach it? Sure. But when I demonstrate certain systems, I just can't separate from others.
Hey, Datu, you got a couple questions coming in.
All right. Let me see here. Alex.
Oh, I just want to make a quick comment to Renee. Renee, when are you going over there to do your thing?
August.
Is that
Finland?
Finland?
I want to do an interview with you and those guys over there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, August 26th, I'm heading out.
Yeah, just let me know.
Do you have a flyer?
There is one that's been put out.
That's for Finland, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Send me it to me so I can send it to the guys over there.
Okay, sounds good.
If it's open.
Of course it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
My whole motto is the more the scarier, right?
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, just touch base with me, Renee, because if I can get you on with those guys when you're over there, that'd be good.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I actually just got invited to go back to. I was supposed to go to Spain, but it's not working out right now. But I'll be back there next year to teach again.
Just tell the guys when you go over there, though, not to hurt their feelings, by episode 55, that they're not going to. It's not going to be.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it'll be the finish episode.
Okay. All right.
I'll be teaching the finishing move.
And Kaju Weapon says the more the scarier, and they like your comment there. There we go. Okay, so let's do a few of these right here.
I got a couple of questions. I think one was from Chris and one was from Alex.
Let me see here. Alex was saying, "Hey, Datu, moving forward, what is your vision of Remy's legacy?
Get some water.
What is your role? How can others help to do it?" So, oh my God, my dog's killing me here. So, as far as help, we all got to go out and swing a stick and share the art. And Rich has been around me enough to hear me say, we're all Remy successors. No matter as long as whether it be the highest ranked black belt or the newest white belt, using a belting system, everyone helps contribute one way or another. As far as how to that going, the best thing I think is figure out what you're looking to do. Do you want to do this as an enrichment program, or do you want to do this as a standalone? Where we teach both, but we use the enrichment program as a gateway program to get people in. So the cross-training mindset, the art within your art, is a good way to get people into the art, but then having a system to take it to that next level afterwards. Let me go back here. Okay. I'm not sure, Rich. Name. Okay.
I'm not sure what names. The only ones that were actually Filipinos who would have spent time was either Shashir or Roland.
Attached to Ferdinand Marcos. I think they were talking about the Ferdinand Marcos thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Rich is okay. Rich hair matches the blinds. Yeah, he does. There's a comment there. I'll wait for Renee to say something. Okay. And the hush falls over the crowd.
Nice.
Okay.
Should I say it? I have hair.
Well, there we go. There we go. Okay. All right. So my dad told me many stories of him seeking after Remy. That's where it got the real training. He says, "Yeah, I mean, listen, you had to seek out Remy. The cool thing, okay, if you just did the seminars by you, you got the status quo. If he saw you around, he would take you to the side and give you. Actually, I got pretty much semi-private seminars. Like we would do a seminar, and I remember Kevin Black and I would be at the seminar, and Remy would say, he'd take us aside, you do this. And actually, Ty's got footage of this with him, where Remy would teach you guys something completely different than everyone else in the room. Hold on one second here. What do you want? Oh, my goodness, my puppy.
Were there any Canucks that were training with Remy at the time? Or
so Michael Donovan out of London, Ontario, had a decent cadre. Actually, he was probably the highest concentration of modern and primary art. So he was a Tracy's Kempo guy and blended the two together. And he had a whole slew of people who graduated in Modern Arnis black belts. So so that's that. Let me see here. Okay, now I'm going to get to the next question here. Comment. Okay, Datu, question. When would you qualify the finality of Remy's art? Because there was, Modern Arnis in the 70s, then there's the 80s and 90s before he passed away. I'm just trying to understand what is pure.
What are you doing?
It's not that. It's the comment about pure isn't about the era. It's about how you addressed it. So there's plenty of open hand combatives in what we do, and most people put time into training. I would do a lot of here's the tough guy. 170-pound lapdog. You gotta love it. So Rich,
Sorry, Tim. I got to cut you off there for a second because this is 16 pounds of apex predator.
and my guy would probably like, woo, and try to play with him, and then like run away, and then play with him because he's a big softie. Here, Rich, you and I have talked about this on a couple of occasions. Let me get rid of him and see if you can fill in on that a little.
So, Chris, I think there's some terms that some people use where they talk about classical Modern Arnis, and that comes up through the 70s. In the 80s, and it was a transitional decade, I'll say, where he was rolling out more and more and trying to find ways in different drill sets to teach people to move differently. And then in the 90s, when he started rolling out some of the drill sets that turned into Tappy Tappy, I think that was where he started being able to get people to move. Now, nowhere in there does he violate his principles or core movement strategies, his techniques, and or rules that he did have, such as don't get hit, put a block up, hold your block a certain way. But there were certain concentrations. Some of that had to do with the exposure to other arts. Some of it had to do with what was popular at the time. But in some of the discussions I had with him, his comments were, well, learn it all, because you'll never know what piece you need to teach to a student so that it connects with them. You can get it from one piece, they might get it from a different piece, where the concepts overlap, the techniques overlap. And I'm not trying to hedge here on you, Chris, because I don't think those who just trained in the 90s had as much exposure in some of the stuff that was taught by those who learned in the 70s. The same thing is true for those who taught in the 70s. They didn't see some of the things that were in the 90s. Could they have sparred against each other? If they were spars, probably. It would all depend upon the individual and what they brought to the table at that day. That's my opinion on that.
So, did we talk about purity or?
I did. I talked about some differences, how 70s, there was a classical Arnis, and 80s was more of a transitional, and 90s was pulling in where he started solidifying some of those transitionals and pulling in the tappy tappy. And then I summarized by saying that those in the 90s may not have the same exposure to those who trained in the 70s or learned from those who trained in the 70s. And that if people stopped learning the techniques in the 70s, they may not have some of those extra drill sets or variations in the 90s. But they could spar each other if they were spars. And it would all depend upon who brought what to the table on that day.
I mean, you know, the thing here is this. Well, let's go back to what Eric Alexander told me about why he had me in. He blended as much Tai Chi in the program as possible. Now, when I teach, I want to teach what Remy does. And listen, we can evolve and do things with the elements. Like I was doing limb destructions left and right, and people saying, that's not Remy's art. I'm like, if you did a deep dive, look at the forms, because if you look at the first six, well, there's 8 open hand forms. The first 6, there's all trapping and limb destruction is built into the system right there. And a lot of people didn't do a deep dive to figure out what he was doing.
Opening moves of Form 2 were nothing but limb destructions. Yeah. Bandia Bando's limb destructions.
Yeah.
Rumpida could be done as limb destructions.
But Modern Arnis was, okay, and here's the thing. It was a marketing gimmick about the art within your art. That's funny how my 35th anniversary, we're talking about the art. But anyways, when we talked about, I mean, the thing about, you know, like I said, Richard Roy, Eric had me instead of Richard because he intentionally blended the two arts together, and you'd have a completely different body mechanics, stuff that wasn't there. And I'm not saying that stuff wasn't useful, because that's not what we're saying. But the thing here is, I want to learn what Remy did. I want to learn as untainted as possible. So if I'm going to blend it with something on my own, then it's my choice. It's not I want it straight up. I don't want to mix drink. And so when I talk about purity, I'm talking about how 95% of the people out there outside the Philippines do the art as an add-on, and they look like they're doing taekwondo, karate, or fill in the blanks with a stick in their hand. And Modern Arnis is a valid Filipino system with its own body mechanics and its own body signature that's not being done because Remy would allow for stylistic interpretation. And I mean, here's the difference. Like what Remy settled on was making people better through FMA concepts added on, grafting it to a primary system, where Ernesto Presas was much, much better at teaching people to become Filipino martial artists. You know, and so when I say this, and a lot of people don't get it, you know, and the thing here, especially if you weren't around, we just sat there and say, you know, and the thing would be this: when you see all the footage of Remy, Chris, you don't see the room moving. You see Remy moving. So, and you probably get this when you see when you're helping your father teach. If you have people from multiple styles, you're going to see completely different body mechanics. You know, but you know, like music, they all use the same notes, but they're different styles. You know, and that's the whole thing is we don't want Modern Arnis has become such a hybrid cross training thing. It's hard for people to. We need that original DNA so we can keep it going forward. That's why you look at someone like Ken Smith, who is an accomplished Okinawan martial artist. If you want to figure out how to do Arnis with an Okinawan blend, talk to Kenny Smith. You want to do Arnis with a Kempo blend, talk to Brian Zawolinski. You want to do Arnis by itself, you talk to Rich or myself when it comes to Remy's blend. So I'm not trying to berate people, but when you blend it with other things, which is not a bad thing, but I don't want to do your blended thing. I want to do what Remy taught. And that was the point. Like Ty and I've talked about this multiple times, and people are getting offended by it, but we're not trying to say what people are doing is wrong. We want to do the original source material. We want to do what Remy was teaching, not what he produced.
Here's a point, though. With these new people coming up, they might not know there's a difference,
and that's why there's arguments now.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, okay, so I've noticed it. Maybe I'm not. I'm looking into it, but I've a couple times when talking to Chris, or we've been on the show, I felt a little friction there because I'm not trying to take away from what anyone's saying, but I mean, like, you know, Chris, we were talking about you earlier today and your father, and not in a negative way. We were talking about the story you said, how this one guy claimed to be the East Coast rep and didn't know who your father was. And we talked about all the things, like we didn't have online the stuff the way it was. You know, and it wasn't when we talked about it back then, and even when we talk about it today, it wasn't about insulting anybody. It's about putting things in proper context. And I said on the show, no one knew who any of us was, or unless we traveled. You know, no one would have known no one would know the Flint group. I knew who Rich was, but we had been in the same room multiple times, and he's a phenomenal Irish dancer when Remy's doing a finger lock to him.
I tried to levitate.
Here's a question for I want to ask Renee. It's going to parallel though what you're talking about, as far as internet on that. Renee, when the Dog Brothers first came out, outside of California, how did they have success spreading it with no internet and that? And I mean,
I think that the original videos is what really gave it some success, because, you know, like, I look at it this way, like, even when I started going to gatherings, there'd be gatherings sometimes, you know, you're flying down to California and you show up to fight at the park and there's like 14 guys, right? So and by that time it was really established, right? But it's I don't know. I think the original series was what really helped. Because there was like rumors beforehand, right? Like when I first heard of the Dog Brothers, I had no real idea what it was outside of, you know, when I spoke to Philip, even before I spoke to Philip, I should say. And it wasn't until I saw the videos that I saw it gaining popularity. And now with like YouTube and and Facebook and Instagram and everything else, like
Yeah.
pretty much everybody knows, who they are, or who we are.
Yeah.
And, again, but, it's funny because our evolution from like the 80s to now, it's like all of a sudden you'll have people say, oh, yeah, well, we did the same thing at the same time. And, that's just didn't happen.
No. You guys are definitely deserve that credit. And all
we
that.
also got to remember there's a difference between Dogma Brother gatherings and workouts as opposed to Mark Denny's DBMA.
Oh, it's two separate things.
Because a lot of people confuse the two and think it's all.
And that's it's a very good point. There is the Dog Brothers, who are the stinky, sweaty psychopaths with sticks that meet at the park, and then there's DBMA, which is the art that Mark developed, right, through the research and watching the fights and everything else. And a lot of people don't know that as well, right? Like I have to. When I first meet people or people want to train, I tell them whatever DBMA I teach is not Mark's blend. It's more of Benjamin's blend from Europe, Lonely Dog.
And that's the thing, because when a bunch of people fight together, you can look at this like Filipino martial arts. Did the Filipinos do stick and dagger, or did they see that it worked for the Europeans and then they adopted it? So when you're a bunch of people are fighting, man, Rene keeps hitting me with this damn move. Maybe I should do it back to him. So you've got this collective training thing through experience, and
my favorite thing when I speak to my Filipino friends and how they tell me how the Filipinos kick the Spaniards' ass, I just kind of look at them and go, did they kick our asses, Mr. Rodriguez?
I'll get that third name. Huh?
Listen, they got one in on Magellan. Okay, so give them one.
I know, honestly, hey, listen, when a guy in full body armor falls in water and tries to get to the beach, and a guy baby steals him, absolutely, I'll give it to you.
If you saw the amount of tidal flow in the height of the tide on that beach, you could easily understand how it was very difficult for them to run through the muck to get to that ship that was further out, because there are boats who are cradled like 14, 16 feet in the air, because that's where they were sitting above that and then anchored, and then they rested onto those when the tide went up.
Bobby Tabuada took us took us right where it was, and it's crazy how we're looking at all this dried land, and there's some like crabs or whatever, and all of a sudden we turn our back. 10 minutes later, it's water. I'm like, what the hell just happened? So it was really cool going to the spot where that battle actually happened. But once again, we digress. Let me get to some of these things here. So,
sorry, just to finish answering Dean's question there. So I think that's what really helped, especially with YouTube and everything else. And then people coming out to watch the fights and everything as well. That really helps.
That's right too. Yeah.
And and dare I say, Beat the Crap Out of Cancer has made a huge impact, especially in Canada. Like, because in 30 years there was only like 2 Dog Brothers in Canada. It was Philip and Loki.
Yeah.
And then I became the third. And
Craig will never become one, because every time he goes to do an international, something comes up and I take him to another part of the world.
Well, it'll just take longer. That's all. But hey, man, the guy breaks. He breaks coconuts. I love it.
Yeah. So, okay, let me go here. Rocky said some things. I want to get caught up, and then Chris asked another question. Remy spent months, times 3 to 4 months at a time of the year. So Rocky or Remy would actually move in with Rocky.
I remember him saying that.
And his family. Tim was actually doing a number of seminars and camps even before John closed his school. You can't deny that. That was the person I started with, John Bryant. There are 3 Filipino names on the will, Rene. Yes, okay. But how many people are from the Philippines? I mean, living in the Philippines. That's the thing we were talking about. So Marlena Hafana, which was typoed, he's living up in the Seattle SeaTac area, Seattle, Tacoma, Washington area. Roland Rivera, David Nung, they are in Raleigh, North Carolina. I don't know the Cesar if that's Shashir or not. Maria, if you know if that's actually Shashir's name, because there's a whole nomenclature for people's names that I don't understand in the Philippines, and that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to sound insensitive. And
I did a quick search for the name as spelt in the will, and it didn't come up with anything. So, either they're hermits or it's not a normal spelling.
Yeah, and yes, 35 drinks on Tim. Okay, yeah, L'chaim. So, anyways, Chris, you and I got to talk. By the way, I got some questions I want to bounce. I got a proposition for you.
Red Bull. Oh my God! At this time of night.
I had Monster earlier, but that's okay.
Dude, I can drink like 15 of those, which I know is really bad for me, but I like it, and then just go right to sleep.
Okay.
Are you serious?
Oh, absolutely.
Holy cow! This covers up Renee's face. I should have done that a long time ago. No, I'm just joking. Okay, here we go.
I can do this though.
You can do that very well. In 1983, after meeting Remy, Remy and I were talking to Punong Ted. Remy at the time was looking to take a select few of work traditional body mechanics. I don't even know why.
Are you there?
Is it?
All right, so body mechanics, and then have them help spread it. When he sent me to Buffalo, me being Rocky, to Don Zaghi, he would also ask Rocky, did you teach them footwork? It lasted about a year, but then he realized many of the guys doing the art, secondary, as Tim says, just were not going to pick it up. Eventually, that's why he got rid of Dikadina, Espadia, Dada, and they were just, there just wasn't people who were doing them. So you brought up Punong Ted and wonderful facial expressions there, guys. But the comment that you made earlier about new people, one of the stories Punong Ted out of the Balintawak told me was he could go to dinners with Anchan or by himself with any of the Dose Pars, right? But you got down to the leaders, teachers, students, or third-tier teachers, and all of a sudden they're fighting amongst each other, saying their seniors hate each other, but they're all at the same parties drinking beer and eating food, right? Mm. So when you get that lack of communication, a lack of clarity, and lack of documentation, which is where I believe you were going at that time, Dean, then you can get that lack of information and lack of understanding.
Yeah, like I said, I wanted to digress, but, because I really made a genuine attempt in those shows to try to really distinguish the curriculum, like, pending on not just a decade, but did you get it, through him and just only him? Was it camp seminars? Was it an adjunct or, secondary or tertiary program based on the school that you went to? And it just was gray. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, people had to do their own work, though. I mean, like we talked about, everyone talks about, and someone brought this up the other day, that there wasn't a belt-to-belt curriculum. We had the test that would get you to black belt. All the things. What would it have taken for you to subdivide it into different levels and do your own thing? Because that was a good thing. Remy didn't tell you how to get the job done. He just told you to get the job done. And he gave you all the tools to get the job done if you did your work. The problem was that sometimes, and here's what Bob said, Remy wouldn't teach something, okay?
Yeah.
And people would then say, it's not in the art anymore. I go, no, it's like a band going on tour. They when they get to a certain point, there's too much in their catalog to play in a concert. So you have to pick and choose what you're going to play. So, I mean, how often does a band if it has like 10 albums, they're not going to play in order and do all the songs from all 10 albums. I mean, so you pick and choose, okay, what's the latest hit? We're going to pop that on there. A few of the old time standards, move some things around. But I mean, I used to go see Rush all the time. One of the best bands out there, by the way, although their show was the same damn thing over and over again. I still love them. You didn't like Rush?
I have a
like the Canadian band.
You know what? I actually built a house beside the singer. What's his name? Whatever the hell his name is. And yeah.
Okay.
I got to see the personal side of him, and I got to dislike him.
Ooh.
Actually, I have a question for you. Because again, I wasn't doing Kali when you guys 35 years ago. But did like GT and the rest of the guys and Remy did they get together when they're doing seminars and whatnot, or? So I'm only saying that because actually I'll say this because Tim is one of the only people instructors that I've actually seen come out to a seminar as a participant. So I'm just wondering.
Thank you.
If, and you got to give him credit for that because most cats will be like, yeah, maybe I'll meet him.
The only thing Renee gives me credit for.
True. But some guys will just say, "Oh, I'll meet you guys at the after party," sort of thing, right? But no, Tim actually came out on more than one occasion to either support something that's happening or to come and participate in a seminar. So I'm wondering because I remember actually even back in the day, I'll say this, I remember seeing Guru Jun De Leon actually coming out to a PTK seminar.
Okay.
But I was just wondering if back in the day, if they came out, participated, or if they got along, sort of thing.
Well, I do know that in the Sykes household, I think it was, the mother Syke kicked Remy and Leo out of the house because they were arguing. You don't mess with Mama San. So, there was Remy. Okay, I've seen Remy get on the floor with Wally J. I've seen Remy get on the floor with Dr. G. I don't think there's I don't think there was ever good blood between Remy and Leo. I don't know. I know there's been a thing for a while, and it's kind of the BTK world and Modern weren't getting along too well at times. But that's history. Things have changed, So, yeah. I mean, like I said, I know Remy used to do stuff. He'd get on the floor, or hell, even with the students. I would show Remy something that I came up with, and one of two things happened. He'd either trash it, say, "Don't do this because of X, Y, and Z," and show me something new, or he would have me do it a whole bunch of times, and then sometimes he'd end up teaching that material. So it was a win-win. I mean, if he did it, that was an endorsement of what I did. I contributed. If I did something he didn't like, he would give me something better. But I've seen him take. There's a hand capture he does. Kenny Smith came up with it. So he would take inspiration from a whole bunch of people. He wasn't afraid of doing things. But these guys didn't hang out with each other. I mean, unfortunately, Remy. So just to give a thing on Remy was doing 2 seminars every weekend, pretty much. When he first came to Buffalo, before I started hosting him solo, when I would co-host him with some people, he would fly in on Friday, do a seminar on Saturday, fly out Sunday morning to Connecticut and do a seminar on Sunday. Every weekend he was doing these types of things. It was crazy. So he didn't have time to hang anywhere. And I don't think he was ever at the same place. Since Remy was more East Coast based, there wasn't a very high concentration of FMA out here. And we were all spread out. And actually that was really good for me because I got judged on my ability, not on my genetics. We'll just put it that way. And I hear crickets. Literally, I'm hearing crickets.
Renee.
Okay.
Renee was not satisfied with your answer.
Okay. Yeah, well, they didn't.
Not at all. I was thinking of something else.
Okay. All right.
It was genetics. It was when you said genetics.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
I didn't say you.
It was a real deal. Thanks, Pat. I'm gonna go up to this. I'm gonna get Chris's, and then I'm gonna pop down to Paulo. Okay. Do we want to invite him on?
Who?
Paulo.
He's here?
He just asked a question. Who's the next Remy Presas? We'll get into that.
Oh my God.
Paulo, do you want to be on the show? If
who
so,
is the next Remy?
I don't know. Well, okay. So I'm gonna pop up Chris's question. I'm gonna send an invite to Paulo. Rich, can you read this while I do that?
Okay.
Who is the next one?
Oh, great. There we go.
No, Renee, here we go. Here we go. Listen, does that make you feel better?
I feel good. All right.
Oh my God, he's above me now. He's gonna be looking at me.
So Chris has posted. So then, no disrespect intended. Was the art ever finished or done? It sounds like Professor wanted to learn from as many people, and he wanted his people to learn from as many people. So then, as is modern, a true standalone art, because it sounds like Remy's vision was to continually grow and evolve the art where it suited the individual practitioner the best. Just his 2 cents as someone who never met the man but is genuinely trying to learn more. Chris, I think the core was there. I think the you might have gotten some more variations for entries and finishes, but the core was there. And those entries and finishes were based upon exposure to people. And he understood directly because he went around and traveled when he was young, and sparred or fought, depending upon who you discussed with, on different arts, different organizations. Then he traveled as an ambassador to Japan and Australia and to California as a goodwill ambassador. And so he got more exposure there. And he continued to watch and observe. But I don't think it changed his core. I think it did it help? Yeah. But it allowed him to reach out to more people, allowed him to tie it in, allowed him to work with more people, to reach them. There was a karateka guy who had a closed head injury, and he was having trouble learning new stuff. So I worked with him and said, look, you can do a hard blocks, and you can do hard blocks. Yes. And you can do a hard block. Yes. So we did a hard block, punch, right? Then it turned into a pass, trap, punch. And then we softened it up for him based upon a hard technique he already knew. So instead of creating a new memory path, we modified an existing memory path. And I was able to do that with him because the core structure was there. And I could reach out to what he knew and then express that. And I think that's what Remy was trying to do with more and more exposure to people. Not just pick up little subtle techniques, but to figure out how more people move or how they reach those people so he can reach more people as well. Renee, you seem...
That was actually well put.
Okay.
I was listening, Rich.
I don't think. Yeah. Renee smiled. Okay. I listen. Remy's body of work would never be finished because he would always fine tune things. Things would click and evolve another section, but I don't think once again, like Rich said, he had enough. Okay,
so he gave you 6, 10, 8. You know, your box drill, right? You learned 6, then he taught you 2 new techniques to go on to it to 10. And then if one side doesn't do that extra 2, then it becomes an 8 count drill. Then you now saw the process of how you could then do your own adding on to those techniques out of that box drill of 6 or out of that box drill of 10. And then you can now do the variations. With each one of those techniques being taught elsewhere in the forms, in the special striking, in any of the other curriculum, then that allowed people to be able to connect and understand, in my opinion.
You know,
No, Renee, I'm wrong.
No, my dog is like tearing shit apart. So.
Okay.
I'm just shaking my head because my dog's crazy.
Yes. No. I think. I mean, listen. Remy completed the system. I don't want to say it's not. Listen.
It's not static; it's dynamic. But
no, it would evolve. It would definitely evolve. And I think Remy did some things, put it on the shelf, and brought it back out later. And a lot of times, see, the thing here is Remy would teach us circling, going back to the band analogy. When Remy stopped teaching something, it was because he was going to another department. I mean, so trapping hands was a huge part of the seminars for the longest time. And then he stopped doing it. Why? Because we should be doing our own homework. Remy would teach the angles of attack with footwork, and he stopped doing it for a while. Why? Because we should have been doing our own homework. And we can still fill in the blanks. But some people, there was a movement that people want to say we should only test the material that Remy was teaching at camp. I'm like, when was the last time you saw Remy teach the forms? And besides picking up a video, you wouldn't have saw it because Remy didn't teach the forms. He had me teach the forms. And there's a lot of things that we didn't have time to do that we should have been doing. So a lot of times when they bring something back out, people, I remember the last camp, I tested for my 6th, the last Michigan camp. And Gabrielle Roloff was running the tests because obviously I was on the floor, couldn't do both. Gabrielle asked people to do 6-count drill. Half the room was lost. They didn't know what 6-count drill was. So I don't think Remy was looking to learn to do more material. He wanted to do little nuanced things for the upper belts that were out there. But really, the biggest thing is he wanted to get more people on the program. And before, he allowed for a lot more stylistic interpretation, and you would hear the phrase, well, you can do that. Well, he started less of you can do that and start do this. And later, it was more of do this and a lot less of you can do that, which was just the Filipino way of not saying you're wrong. We had Jason and I on, he talked about the Filipino culture. They don't want to sit there and say negative things to people. It's a cultural thing,
Yes, you can do that.
Yeah. So, and unfortunately, because we didn't understand that culture and someone couldn't translate that for us, that people got a lot of things. So I think Remy didn't need to develop anymore. We had everything we needed because all we had to do is take those formulas and apply them to different scenarios. All my open hand combatives, my Panantukan and programs and stuff, that's really all the stick stuff done without weapons in my hands. But I did the research. I went hands-on. And I didn't rely on karate or taekwondo or jiu-jitsu to fall back on. I mean, that's why I started the Modern Arnis Alliance. I had it on a notepad in like 99 or 98 because I looked around and everybody that I saw that I knew, that's an important way I said it right there. Everyone that I saw that I knew did Modern Arnis as a secondary or tertiary system. So when shit hit the fan, their safety net was their primary art. And none of them took their FMA training wheels off because no matter how high of a rank they got, they didn't convert their schools over. They kept doing karate or taekwondo 5-6 days a week and do one Arnis class. Okay. So, these are the things, and that's why I'm very, passionate about this because I've been doing FMA since I was 19 years old. I just turned 58.
It's been about 35 years, right?
What?
It's been about 35 years.
I'm a black belt for 35 years.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So 35 years ago today, I was promoted to black belt. Look on. So, but I've been doing longer than that, and it's like, listen, and it's always been Modern Arnis. Listen, did I do Balintawak? Of course I did. Sikran, Kuntao, and all these other arts. But I started from Modern Arnis and trained in other. And one of the reasons why I did all these other arts is these are systems. Most of the systems I train are systems that Remy pulled source material out of. He gave me my first Sikran lesson. When I did my first Sikran lesson with my Sikran instructor, it was the same damn lesson Remy gave me like 15 years prior. He told me that Kuntao and Sikran are part. I can see the Balintawak connection after doing my Balintawak. And all these things I did were to seek out the roots and understand because I wanted to bring more to the forefront while still evolve the art, while still keeping true to its concepts and principles. And the problem is most people don't know them because they're doing karate and taekwondo and blending it in there and they're getting something else. And it's not a bad thing. But once again, like I said before, if we're going to do Remy's art and keep it going, we need to make sure that there's somebody out there that keeps that source material going, and they can still evolve, but they got to stay true to that source material.
Sorry, did you say that Sikaran and Kun Tao are the same thing, or
No? I said that Remy pulled some material to create. So Kun Tao is like a Filipino kung fu or karate, and Sikaran is like a Filipino taekwondo. Remy had pulled source material from that and made it part of Modern Arnis when he was in the Philippines. So when I did all these other arts, it was about looking at my roots. It wasn't about learning a new system. It was to see what Remy pulled from and maybe try to figure out on my own why he did that. And do a deeper dive, because most of my classmates couldn't handle it, because and Rich had seen these. Most of these people never took their FMA training wheels off. But that's just my opinion. Okay. Joe said he was lucky he started in 90 and 85. It was even written on the test sheets whether you're drawing the cat, around rotata 90 degree. Okay. Leo was quite good at not getting along with a lot of practice.
Actually, quite excelled.
Hey, listen, you know what? Here's a perfect example of someone who did his job so well. He could stop teaching tomorrow, but Bikini Tertial will keep going.
Yeah.
I don't know if a lot of systems could say that today.
Well, dare I say that some of the systems that have come out are surpassing what the original PTK groups were.
But they should. But you see, here's the whole thing. So someone made a comment because I was talking about how we're doing forms. I know like some systems are not form driven, but there's a lot of stuff that Remy had in there. Doesn't matter why Remy put him there. He did, whatever. And I talked about the rules of movement that Remy taught us. And if you follow the first stick form, it breaks the rules. I said we should change it this way. So, and the comment was someone got pissed off about it and said this, that, and the other thing. And then you're saying that Remy's wrong. Well, why can't Remy be wrong? He's just a human. We all make mistakes. He trusted way too many people, like a lot of other instructors did. And look what went sideways with other people, Okay, here we go. Seems like the Modern Arnis community is over-concerned about proving why the time they spent with Remy is more valuable than the next guy.
I think that's true, but based on the episodes I did, it far exceeds that. In other words, kind of the underlying aspects that came out of that series I did was validating not so much their time directly with Remy or not, but validating their journey in Modern Arnis period, whether it was by the vehicle of seminars or camps or in conjunction with the personal training with him. That's what really came out, like that validation. Like, even though they might have not spent an incredible amount of hours with Remy, but they still got the material regardless of where it came from. That's what I got out of that series, as opposed to, well, I spent 100 hours with him.
Yeah, but isn't it
70?
Isn't it correcting the game of telephone, right? Because I sometimes people say, well, let's say in the Dog Brothers world, Eric was like this and Eric was like that, or they start talking about Eric and they've never met him before. And someone who has met Eric and spent time with him will be like, no, it's actually, he said A, B, C, not whatever you're regurgitating. So it's not a question of like, I have to, I'm showing off that I spent time with him. I'm just correcting you on what you think he said.
So let me talk about this one right here. Let's look at Wally J's influence in the evolution of Modern Arnis, the demographic material over the years. A shining example of is incorporating arts to evolve the art. Right. But Remy was the one that made that synthesis.
So when you say that, I mean he allowed Wally J to come into the circle, so to speak?
No. He took stuff he sampled pieces of Wally J's. So Remy used to do locks and controls long before he was working with Wally J. But after hanging with Wally J, things started changing. His locks started tightening up. But I heard Chad Bailey made this comment. and I still haven't been able to verify it. Allegedly, it was Remy who actually showed Wally how to do lock flows, which I would have thought had been the other way around. But Remy was always flowing with stuff left, and evidently Leon J had said that to Wally, but I could be wrong. Or Leon J said that about Remy. So here we go. Now's the thing when people fight, compete, or
there is a diminished need to validate.
Back to the.
Yeah. Oh, you want to see that?
No, I was going to say back to the time and validating.
Okay.
Dean, I'm subject to that myself. Okay. So after Remy's death, I went out and saw as many people as I could who had titles, rank, and so forth, right? Some people I knew, some people I'd seen before, but I went and did another status check. And in that, I met a lot of people on the floors.
Yeah. I
worked with them. And if any of those instructors wanted to cross hands or cross sticks in a friendly manner, I did so as well, right? I never tried to hurt anybody. I just tried to learn and assess where I was in relationship to them, right?
Sure.
And many of them returned comments of respect, right? So there are ways that you can get that validation, right? One is to make statements and make claims. One is to go find out. One is to go check. And I'm not saying I'm better than any of them. I'm just saying I went out. People liked what I had. People liked how I expressed it. And then people were able to respond to me.
No, I can see that just by the way you're explaining stuff on here when you were taking over for Tim. I could definitely see why people would resonate with you as far as your explanation and all that. Just seeing the way you're discussing things and articulating things. It's just, when I did that series, it just, and I hate to keep saying the same thing. It was great, this gray fog or this just gray matter. But I gotta be honest, I didn't leave that series with concrete conclusions. Far from it, actually, and not that was the goal necessarily, or I was expecting, but I was definitely, I gotta be honest, I was definitely expecting I'd get more clarity on some of this stuff by virtue of doing the series, and I actually think it got even more murkier, the waters post doing it.
So the more you know, the less you know, or the more you know, the less you understand.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas when I did, for instance, when I did the illustration series, I got a lot of clarity. It went really well, and there were a lot of question marks that not got answered, or some of my doubts got confirmed, on both sides of the coin. But while I definitely enjoyed doing the Modern Arnis series, I didn't leave I think it was just I thought more kind of confused, you know what I mean? Is because I do these series because I generally wanted to get a better understanding of Modern Arnis. The framework, the structure, who's who,
Well, but once again, we talked about this before. There's too much of there's a lot of egocentric stuff with this, and people would, okay, I would make a comment about I promote me. This is what I do. It's my living. I got to talk about me. Okay, it's all about him. All right. But I'll talk about something, and then I get this message from someone that they're all offended about something I said. I go, case in point, I was the highest tested black belt. And when Remy and Rich has seen all the stuff that I've had to deal with over these 35 years, the negative stuff, and I have done my best to tiptoe around and try to phrase things to promote myself as a businessman, as a martial artist, but as neutral as possible so it doesn't offend people. And people go out of their way. I made this comment that I was the highest tested black belt. I'm like, what are you trying to say? What do you mean? Well, what are you trying to say about us? I don't know about you. I don't know what you did. And it turns that a lot of people, they didn't test past black belt. Well, I didn't know that. That's not me. I continued to test because I had such a good relationship with Remy, and I know people would make comments about it. I wanted to make sure that I remember doing a pretest helping one of my guys test for their black belt, and someone afterwards, they talked to the guy saying, hey, Mike, you did a great job. Holy shit, we didn't know Tim was this good. We thought he was a political black belt. These are the reasons why I would take the floor whenever I could. On multiple occasions, I have taken the floor for testing, and but when I talk about that, to try to say I was, I could have easily sat there and I would stick by it that I was Remy's heir apparent. Okay. The only dedicated school to teaching Modern Arnis, the only person I know of that started in Modern Arnis and stuck with Modern Arnis versus a person who's doing karate 5 days a week in one Arnis class or no Arnis classes on their schedule, but then try to say that they're the end all be all instructor. But, and I'm like, dude, I'm trying to phrase things as neutral as possible. And then you're going out of your way to find problems with things. Yeah, but, you're making me look bad. No, you're doing that.
You guys are way too nice. Listen, I watch from a distance sometimes, and I see how you guys navigate through that bullshit, and and I think it's great that you guys are that nice. But I guess because martial arts is not my full-time vocation. It allows me to tell people where to go, and not really care. And it's got me to some hot water, but I commend you guys for being as nice as you are.
I commend you.
I sure as hell couldn't do it.
Well, I don't want to say that someone's instructor is bad.
Why not? If it's the truth.
Well, listen, they made their choice.
Hey, listen, I made a comment once a while back about stick fighting, and I just gave my 2 cents worth, because that's what I do, right, about stick fighting. And the guy sends me this long 20-page message about, I don't have the same time that you have to commit to fighting. And it just went on and on and on. And I didn't even read it. And I just basically said, listen, I only read the first 3 lines of this. I don't care. If you don't have the time to fight, I don't need your explanation because I actually don't care. Either you do or you don't. And that's the end of it. And I think if you're training with somebody who's teaching you to get your ass kicked, then I think as a friend, it's your duty to tell them.
Hey, right away.
We're not all friends. That's all. All right. So, Joe, okay. Thank you. Okay, because Joe mentioned having. There's been a lot of talk on this. So, thank you, Rocky, for mentioning about the footwork. Both of my students, when they tested for the camp in Massachusetts, were complimented on their footwork. When they were asked, I would say that Remy Presas, I saw later it was de-emphasized. I think part of the problem, I don't know if things were de-emphasized as opposed to, and this is the thing, I remember we shot a video down in Texas that the lighting wasn't good for it. I bailed out of the shoot because of the argument. Remy walked by, we're doing the angles of attack. I'm doing the triangular footwork. There's a whole bunch of people there doing it or not doing it. Remy says, do it Tim's way. And then people proceeded to argue about it afterwards. And I just walked up to Remy afterwards. I'm not feeling good. I don't think I can do the video shoot. I just didn't want to be a part of the nonsense. I'm like, come on. Remy said, do it this way. Let's do it this way. I don't care if they would have told me, let's do it Chuck's way. Let's do it Kenny's way. Let's do it Bruce's way. Let's do it Brian's way. I wouldn't give a shit. If Remy said, let's do it somebody's way, the man just gave us walking orders. Do what you're supposed to do. But this is the kind of shit that would happen all the time because they wanted to do it their way. And the thing was, most of these people, I don't think, learned the art the way it was supposed to be. Once again, I started in a full-time school, the Filipino Karate Academy. I can't tell you how many times I did triangular footwork, and at a seminar, Remy's trying to teach the nuts and bolts. And I don't want to say it was de-emphasized, but he focused on the angles of attack first and foremost because we needed that feed. Whether he also had gout, so a lot of times he could not lead by example because it was flaring up. Let me see here. Okay.
So before you move on, so Renee, just to clarify, I'm not a full-time professional martial artist. I'm an engineer that pays for my bills. And locally, if I'm not happy with my students, I find them another home. And I tell people, look, there's nothing wrong with them. They just need a different instructor. They need a different art because this is what they're looking for. Somebody was training Tang Soo Do. They just, because it fit their schedule with me, but I went and found them a Tang Soo Do instructor, right? So therefore, they got the art that they were looking for. A happy martial artist, is better than.
And I think that's great. You know, and again, you're being nice, and that's fantastic. I had a student that came up to me once and said, "I just want to let you know today's my last class." I was like, "What, are you moving or something?" And they're like, "No, I just find it it's a little too aggressive." And I was like, "You've been with me for 3 months and you figured this out now?" I'm like, and I literally just said, "Why don't you just pack your shit and leave?" And I meant that. I wasn't trying to be an asshole, but that's just the truth, right? Like, why are you wasting your time for the next 90 minutes with me if you're already telling me you're not coming back? Right. Like, do me and yourself a favor and just leave now.
Yeah.
And sign up for something else at the school. Now, you know, maybe my approach isn't the best, but it just, I don't know. I just don't like wasting my time like that. And again, I think it's great if you can be nice about it. I don't know. I guess it's the Spanish and Italian blood when they mix together. It's like, screw this action.
Why don't you just leave now?
I had a student, a Filipino, came up to me and he says, my dad and my uncle were talking and they said, you don't know how to train the old way. I said, oh, okay, you want to train the old way? So I made everybody sit down, brought him up, and I swung a stick at him. And he goes, what do I do? After I hit him in the shoulder, I said, I would block if I was you. I've taught you how to block before. I would throw a block out there. Well, when you go to block, I'd hit him on the other side. Well, I've taught you how to block on that side, right? Well, then we kept moving. I said, okay, let's back up and let's work on getting this block right. And it wasn't hitting him too hard. It left little red marks, but it wasn't full bruises, right? And then he went home. His dad and his uncle laughed at him and said, yeah, I guess the guy does know how to train the old way. But the number of people who come back who are doctors, lawyers, engineers, so forth, are going to be minimal. And it depends upon what you're looking for in your class. If you're looking for that level, then maintain that level so that they understand it. And I support you in doing that, Renee. I think that's an excellent.
Hey, listen, I get a mix from knuckle draggers all the way to engineers, right? Like it's. Yep.
Engineers can be crazy and walk in and want to get hit. Yeah.
Yeah, they want to analyze how that happened.
Right.
No, but yeah, I get all walks of life, and that's kind of what I like and enjoy that, because there's that, you know, as different as we are as, you know, day-to-day humans, we have that commonality that we want to test test what we're all about.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I think it's, and you know, again, it goes to show how, I don't know. I just, by the size of my classes, sometimes maybe I should change how nice I am.
Maybe. Okay. So, Paul Rubio,
Oh
in 1983.
Edwin,
not Paulo. Okay, yeah. Fought Vizio, full cutting. I was 16 or 17 and realized, holy shit, I don't know shit. So I got these guys suited up, and we got better. We lost more and more safety equipment. We had a PTK guys, a couple Lastra guys. I believe. Lestrada. Yeah, okay. I believe in a Modern Arnis guys, some Billabra people. Nobody cared who they were from. Okay, they just met in the park. By the way, back in the days, Michigan PT guys referred to Arnis. Okay. So, listen, when I started, we didn't use any gear. We didn't hit like you guys did in the Dog Brothers. I'm like, we had a pair of sticks. Let's hit each other. And then, you know, we didn't do headshots. I had a lot of knuckle shots. I had a lot of welt marks. So I'm like, yeah, people aren't going to want to do this. I kept doing it, but not like that, you know. And we also had a shitty little 7/8 inch rattan that was only 24 inches long.
Everybody who I've met, with the exception of maybe a few guys in my class who have said, I don't want to, you know, do the fighting, within a few weeks, just get sucked into it. It's a virus. You know, it literally is. It's like, I don't want to do this. Let's go.
higher
And
confidence through higher.
I literally, there's one guy who I always refer to, and it's when I had my training camp in 2009. One of my students been with me for like 3 years at that time already. And at the end of the camp, we're gonna fight, and like everybody's hyped up, and he's got his mouth guard, he's got his stick, he's got his mask, and he stood in the same place for 3 hours. Never picked a fight with anybody, and he regrets it to this day. Every time I see him, he's like, "Man, I wish I would have gone in there." But I think eventually everybody who does it, or even like participates at a beat the crap, eventually they get sucked into doing it. I don't know what the question was. I just threw that out there.
Yeah, we just started talking shit.
Oh, we're rambling right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't really addressed my 35 years of training at all whatsoever.
I know, but
it just turned into what's
When's the
wrong with
anniversary for that,
modern-
anyways, Tim? Tim, can you tell me when the anniversary for that is?
I'm sorry?
Is that today? Is that anniversary today?
Today.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah.
So that would have been at the Lansing Summer Camp in 87?
88.
88.
Yep, posted my black belt diploma. I'm waiting for someone to say, well, I was a black belt this year. Okay, sure, whatever.
that's wow. Hey, but even though the focus might not have been exclusively on your 35-year anniversary, but it's been, look at all the enjoyable conversation we've had, right?
No, listen, the one thing about we are not disciplined on this show. We go all over the place, and
See?
we go where the conversation takes us. There's good information in there. Okay. And everyone all wants happy 35th. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I do have to ask. I have to ask Dean a question. Was your room orange before? Did you recently paint it? Because for some reason I keep thinking your room was orange.
No, it was always this kind of gray.
I think it's bad lighting.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Oh.
And I have started that GoFundMe for that new for the new blinds. So,
Oh, you did? How's it going so far?
we have about a $3. So
That's Canadian, so you'll end up owing him money.
So,
I think that'll do it though. Like I can.
that is the typical Italian blind, right? It's broken from where you like. One of my neighbors doing that.
I'm telling you, man. No lie.
Stop it.
No, when my kids are out there, I'm
Get off my lawn, you bastards!
Yeah. Everyone.
Can you let me know when it reaches $5? I'd like to get.
Remember, it's still Canadian dollars. It's not going to get you anything. Oh my goodness.
Oh my god, that's too. It's hilarious.
Yeah. So
Anyways, happy 35. Happy 35.
Thank you. So hopefully, Chris, we answered your questions. Although I'll probably have someone here mishear what I said and then give me shit tomorrow.
No, but you know what though? I thought Rich did a fantastic job, and he also jumped in and helped with answering the question. So I think between the both of you, I think he was satisfied. I think.
The problem with a lot, just martial arts in general, the head guy leaves. You start talking about things that are factual, and then other people who either don't know about it or they think you're talking about them, and that's it. It's like, dude, if you got a guilty conscience, that's not my fault, I think it would have been nicer if Remy would have been around longer. We would have had more things in place, but that wasn't the case, and I wish that it's rough now because when I'm doing the seminars, there's only a couple people in the room that have met Remy.
That number's probably going to get lower and lower.
Sure as hell not going to get bigger. I just went to my 40th high school reunion Saturday night. And I looked at the wall of people that we lost. And I can't believe in how many of them I knew. I mean, like, I knew. And it was just like, whoa, what the hell happened?
My 40th is this. Actually, it's coming up in a month or so, and that should be like really interesting. Because we both graduated 83, right?
Yeah. First year of the baby boom or the DX.
Yeah, 83.
That'll be next year.
You, me, and Ty were all the same age.
We're all 58, huh? Jeez.
Yeah. But
58.
yeah.
Renee, how old are you?
I'm 52.
52. Okay.
I know I look like I'm 30 something, but I'm actually 52.
You're actually 52. Yes. So yeah,
But, like you were saying, when you're saying about people passing, right? Like that's like you said, there's no one there to put these people in check after, right? Like if you look at some of the big martial arts guys right now, and I won't say their names because I already get enough hate mail as it is. But when they're gone, man, it just opens up the floodgate of bullshit.
Yeah.
Like,
So
well, this guy told me I was going to be the head guy, and all this other nonsense.
Well, for the record, okay, real quick, Rocky, you're only 1 year younger than me, just like Rich. Just stop that shit.
He's about 2 weeks older than me.
Yeah, there we go. And that's it. I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, listen. First of all, we're talking about 2000. We were not exposed to Filipino culture the way we are today. We have no access to. We didn't have access. I would go to Toronto quite a bit, and I was exposed to Filipino culture. But I went to the Philippines to be immersed in it, to have a better. And I believe I probably know Remy better today than I ever did back then, because now some of the things he did and said make more sense. Okay. One thing learned with third guy, one tip black belts would give you. Okay. What's the one thing you learned over the 35 years, and one tip out there black belts you would give?
Don't take checks.
Don't take checks. Cash is king. So here's what I would say to people out there. Do your research. Now you can. Back then, we didn't have the opportunity to do research.
Good point.
We have phenomenal tools. Okay, so when we as we started the show off, we talked about how people didn't know who's whom in the zoo because they didn't have any exposure. Well, now it's the complete opposite. So now's the time to do your research. Before I joined the Filipino Karate Academy, that was my backup plan was go to Bill Adams Martial Arts and Fitness. Bill Adams was the first commercial school in Buffalo. A lot of my friends were training there. We would have top-notch people like Joe Lewis, Bill Wallace, Wally J, Remy, and other people come through their teaching seminars. Top-tier people teaching seminars all the time. So this was going to be my place. And then someone said, Tim, I need you to swing. You got to check this place out. It's cool. That was the Filipino Karate Academy. I had no clue what the hell Filipino martial arts were. All I know is I walked in, the guy handed me a stick, and I was sold. Before I even swung it, he's like, okay, here's your stick. And I'm like, oh, really? I get to use this? Yeah. Okay. And then the second class, I showed up with that big Asian world black stick with the two red stripes, which was supposed to be for the game of death, which was completely not allowed because it was hardwood and would break shit left and right. More importantly, my partner, not me. But nonetheless, I had no clue that this would have been the art. And I didn't stay in it because it was where I started. I stayed in it because it was truly what I wanted. I found an art. I could have just done what most people do, and they go to the nearest karate or taekwondo school. They have a bad experience, and they never go back. They'll do it for X amount of years, and then they get burnt out. Like I get a lot of people that bring their kids to me that they were at a taekwondo school, and 80% of the classes were patterns. We're doing their forms. And they come to us, and they're like, oh, dude, the parents love it because every day we're doing something different. We're hands-on, throwing people around, punching, kicking. Forms are a minor portion of our curriculum. I've got crash mats out throwing people down, and I've got rubber hammers just because, I don't trust them with real hammers. So I've got all these different tools and stuff, and, we keep the energy going.
You don't trust them with real hammers because they were trained by Renee's kid?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the problem
it's also not costing them $500 every week to get tested or some other bullshit like that.
And there you go.
Right.
But people come in but sometimes by the time I get them, the damage was done. They had been through the mill too long, and they were burnt out, and they were already looking for the door, and their parents said, all right. And they kind of still liked it, but it was like, all right, they did 2-3 years in Taekwondo. Now it's like, oh, we do this here, and maybe it's another 2-3 years. So maybe 6 years they were good for, and half of it was spent elsewhere. And then, my kid doesn't want to do it anymore. I'm like, well, who's the parent here? But that's another topic. But
well, it doesn't help when you're using it as like an after school daycare sort of thing, right? And that's,
no.
It sours that real quick. If as a kid, when I was training and they were like, okay, we're going to put you in here for the next 5 hours until dad comes to pick you up.
Oh, yeah.
I would have been out that window. I'll see you at the pool hall. Screw this noise. And so I can see how that's, when someone says, yeah, I'm going to put you something different, it's a lot more fun. You're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. But
at least someone like me, that's definitely would have worked.
So my big thing is, hey, listen, do your because we can do your research, and we don't. And I keep saying this time and time again. You don't have to go to the Philippines to train Filipino martial arts. There's plenty of people here in North America that you can pick things up from. That being said, if there's a specific person you want to work with, that's a whole other topic. Now, we can do virtual classes, but I think we got to get away from that. I mean, okay, so I just did my Pontoon course this weekend. It was a physical class with virtual attendees as well. I'm all down with that. But personally, I am sick of just the virtual only classes, because too many people don't get a partner to demonstrate with. They just do stuff in the air. I'm like, please, if you're going to stab somebody, have a body to stab. At least take a body opponent bag and put a shirt on him and stab him a couple times. But I mean, just the stuff in the air is just not enough. It's just not.
The best is when you can see them not doing anything. I remember like my first Zoom class that I taught, and I could see like there's like 5 people, and that one dude is like sitting in the corner drinking a beer. It's like, I can see you. Like, why are you here? Get lost.
Or the best is when they turn their camera off.
Oh, there we go.
Then you have no idea what the hell.
Here we go, Maria. Tim, thank you for sharing his will. I must say, Remy was a genius in promoting Filipino martial arts. He was.
Hey, I saw Maria not too long ago, and I didn't even recognize her.
Oh, okay. Did you guys go to well, they had that tournament this weekend. She went up to that over at Gary Oliver's brother was doing it. They had Marlena Fano and Felix Roles, and Rodolfo was up. And
no, I just checked out the after party that they stream live.
Oh yeah, they're karaokeing. Yeah.
I was asking to get them to sing songs for Dean for his birthday, which was in April.
Yeah, it was very
thoughtful. You just
very thoughtful of you.
Okay, great answer, Datu. Looking forward to hear how Florida and the World Championship was. Oh, well, Florida. Well, okay, we'll talk about it next week. So, we can keep going, but we're not going to. So, wow, 2.5 hours. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Talis from Brazil. There we go. Thank you. And yeah, so next week we're going to talk about what the art within your art means, or what it meant, or what it could have meant. Our take on it. And Ty will be back. So sorry, Dean.
It's all right.
Well, actually, we're going to do a show with Dean. We're going to get the band back together for something. Actually, did I have that date set up? I got
the 7th or no, the 10th. 10th?
Let me look at my calendar because I got.
Yeah. I think it's the 11th. I think. At least that's what I have down on my calendar here.
And that's all that matters is what.
Yeah.
So next week we've got is the art within your art. That'll be. We'll do that, and then what it means to, at least to us. GM Unyo, oh my God, Grandmaster, how you doing, sir? I should be over in February. So are you around in February? And then the week after, we have, I think that's when we have the 31st is when we have Herb Blue on, another old-time Modern Arnis person. And then the 7th is when I have the Dean reunion. We're going to be talking about a few things. blade
So
craft.
it is the 7th?
The 7th, yes. The August, because the 10th would be a Thursday.
Okay.
We only do Mondays. That's before I take off to England. So,
Gotcha.
and then oh, I gotta do that when I come back. Yeah. So, how do I get back? I get back late. Okay, I could be getting back real late.
So, Tim, it's midnight in Brazil, so Talis is up real late for this.
Yeah. Yeah, he came to the seminar. So we'll be talking about a whole bunch of things next week. We'll see how Ty had his weekend and stuff as well. But you know, I want to thank you guys for joining me on my 35th anniversry as a Remy Presas Modern Arnis black belt.
Happy
we
martial
talked
arts
about like that much of it.
black belt birthday.
Talked about everything else, but it's okay.
It was fun.
It's good to be 35 again.
Well, thanks for having me on, even though I had really no idea what we're talking about.
Well, neither do we, so you fit right in.
I think this is the quietest I've ever been.
So it's your chill and relax time.
It was nice. It was nice for a change. Let other people talk.
All right. So, listen, you guys can stay on because I'm gonna take you out in a minute, but I'm gonna take you out. But let me just we'll just sign off, and then we'll do our thing afterwards. So hold on. So everybody, listen. As always, please stay safe and stay sane. This is Datu Tim and my the Peanut Gallery.
Thank you, everybody.
With Rich, Dean, and the not Tim. And we'll see you all guys later.